All right. Welcome. Welcome, one and all, to our Goldeneye watch party. Um, I am joined today by James, aka Agent OO Pazuzu.
Double O Pazuzu,
You're
licensed
Agent
to
Pazuzu.
damn and be damned.
And I will be your co host, Sharon, Agent 00 Aught Nothing. Um, there we go. And so today we have Goldeneye, which is a beauty of a James Bond film from 1995. It's a little
It's
over 2 hours.
also
Um,
probably quite appropriate considering that the Bond franchise is going to be undergoing one of its periodic rebirths, that GoldenEye is probably the first time that it came back from the dead.
one of many times. Yes, we're going to have a lot to talk about. So y'all sync up the movie to right before the movie does start, right at the black screen, and right as the music starts. So,
I'm
without
either
further
on a
ado,
black screen or my Blu-ray player has died.
oh, your Blu-ray player just died.
No, no, I said I'm either on a black screen or my player has died.
Gotcha. Well, let's hope it's the former. Right on. So let's do a countdown there, Agent Pazuzu.
Well, in double O five, four, three, two, one, go.
Oh, oh, oh! Forgot to mute the movie. All right, so we start with the classic opening. I'm sure this needs no introduction. This is, yeah, oh my gosh, we're going to have a lot of fun with this movie. I will assume, for argument's sake, that we kind of are all familiar with the Bond franchise, the origins of it. However, if there's anybody out there that is unfamiliar with the James Bond franchise, is unfamiliar with the kind of the rebirths that James was talking about here, we can certainly talk about that. Um,
I'd just like people to keep an eye on the geography of this pre-credit sequence because from the time I first saw this in the cinema when it's released, it's never made any sense to me. So it's starting with James Bond or James Bond's stunt double on top of a dam. We'll follow from there.
yeah, so pay attention. Yeah, okay. As the movie is starting in the classic James Bond fashion, let's do a shout out to who is with us today. We have Hell if I Know. We have Eric. Edward the Black Prince is joining us. Welcome back, Edward the Black Prince. We have Miss Swift, Calbot. Let's see, Eric, Mad Matt, old Johnny Devick, Calbot. Who am I missing? Oh, Calbot's given a big shout out. Damn. So yeah, damn. Um, and let's see, that's in the YouTube chat. Let's go over to Discord. Let's see, we have Mr. Ferzel over in Discord. We have Eric. Let's see, sister. Okay, Sith sister Yeltia.
And that shot of the eyes is the first you've actually seen of Pierce Brosnan in this, the rest having been stunt doubles, our friend in every James Bond film.
As with every action film that does not star Tom Cruise, they do require stunts, stunt coordinators, stunt actors, stunt a whole crew of stunt
Your,
doubles.
your, your friendly local Colt Seavers.
Um, so, for all of you who are unaware, this is Pierce Brosnan's first. Not only it's his first showing as 007.
Although
His
it's not what was supposed to have been his first showing, because he was meant to have replaced Roger Moore back for the Living Daylights. It's
Yes, but
he
there.
He'd just come off Remington Steele, was a bit of a name. The Bond producers announced him, and then the Remington Steele producers thought, oh, a bit of publicity. We can get an extra season out of this guy while he's still on contract.
Oh, yes. And boy, was that all over the news back in the day, pre internet. It was all that we could talk about. We were talking about the James Bond incantations, the new James Bond coming out. We were all expecting Pierce Brosnan. Then it was pulled out from under him. He had the role, but it was pulled out by, I think it was NBC who owned the rights to him in Remington Steele and said, not so fast. You're right. We want another season out of you because we're not ready to let you go. And Remington Steele is still a big hit because of you. So, yeah,
And
yep.
Brosnan was really lined up for the role because his wife had had a Bond girl bit part in For Your Eyes Only. So he'd met Cubby Broccoli, the producer, and the others when he'd visited her out on location in Sardinia. So that's kind of how he got on friendly terms with them, which is just as well.
And you know what? As far as I'm concerned, he is uh, one of the one of my favorite Bonds. He just fits the role. This was made for him. Um,
And actually, it's probably best that it happened for him this way because although I love the two Dalton movies, they weren't big box office hits. I mean, technically, they each made more than 5 times their production costs that would make them a hit, but the box office totals were nowhere near what Octopussy had been, and that was two Roger Moore films previously. Then you had legal shenanigans with MGM, the distributor, that stopped any more films being made for 6 years. So if you had had Brosnan, he might have been into less successful films, then had a 6 year hiatus, and then ended up being, well, pretty much sacked the way Dalton was. Because Barbara Broccoli wanted Dalton to come back and be in this film. The other producers wanted Brosnan. Dalton
well,
kind of talked himself out of it by saying he only wanted to do one more film. And they were saying, well, we're hoping to relaunch a franchise. We want you to do like four at least.
and as we know, Brosnan was in. It's a good thing I have my cheat sheet.
Well, at this time,
He was in
Brosnan's
five.
careers were in a
Oh,
real doldrums between Remington Steele and this. He had, as we might remember from a previous watch party, been second fiddle to Jeff Fahey in The Lawnmower Man.
yep.
He'd been second fiddle to Robin Williams in Mrs. Doubtfire. And he'd been second fiddle to Warren Beatty in a Warren Beatty film I don't know the title of because I don't watch Warren Beatty films. So,
uh,
kind of from the producer's point of view, they're looking at it as well, thinking, we're kind of looking for someone to take us into the future. And is this man the past?
well, he certainly proved to be the future. He was in a total of four, as it turns out. Goldeneye, Tomorrow Never Dies, The World Is Not Enough, and Die Another Day. And that was from 1995 to 2002. And
And he
he
wanted
was
to
one of the more
carry on and
successful Bonds.
he wanted to do more, but unfortunately was effectively sacked by Barbara Broccoli, who wanted to take the films in a rather different direction, as people might have seen.
Right. Yeah. So,
So
um,
just remember, he's gone from the dam, through the roof, into the toilet, into the facility that's got a runway on it outside.
yes.
So
So
remember, this is
so
all
that's the
this
dam.
is all below the dam,
So
and
where's
we're
this
not
plane
even at
taking
the
off
end of the
from?
runway yet. Are you starting to
Right.
see what issue I might have with the geography? Oh, look, they're on the edge of a giant cliff beneath a
Well,
dam.
okay, we have to suspend our belief in reality,
No,
and
and
as
there's
Bond
there's
goes, you
there's a
just have
simple
fun.
reason why this doesn't really make sense, and it's just because the script writers didn't write the dam opening. That was something the director, Martin Campbell, had storyboarded that he really wanted to put in the film. And fair enough, it's an amazing stunt. It just doesn't make sense with any of this.
Well, what doesn't make sense to me is this stunt coming up. It's just this is too far fetched, even for me. But this is classic Bond, where it starts off with a big action sequence. He saves the day. Then we
Bond,
go into
Bond can
the Cold
parachute
War.
faster than a plane can fall. He can angle himself correctly
Obviously, he can because he's now
because he's just done it.
dived into a falling plane. And okay,
And
well,
and,
let's have
and
fun with this.
and this is all being done with real props, miniatures, actually dangling planes off sets and having stuntmen dive into them. None
Right.
of this is your computer generated rubbish. You'll see in the credits the name, I think it's Derek Meddings, late of the Jerry Anderson School. He's responsible for special effects in this, which is why we're seeing lots and lots of models.
Well, this is interestingly enough the first James Bond movie to use CGI effects. And as you watch it, even when I was doing my pre-watch yesterday, trying to spot the CGI effects, and I think that facility that blew up, I think that was a CGI effect. I don't
No,
think.
that was a model.
Uh, um,
You could see it
so
as a model.
yeah, so let's see if we can find where the CGI effects are.
I mean,
Oh, and of course,
generally, with something like this, when they're using CGI, it's like more little bits of touch up
I
because
think
they're
so.
still doing everything practically. Whereas in 3 films' time, in Die Another Day, you'll be having a computer generated Pierce Brosnan surfing on a computer generated tsunami. And that just looks awful.
Yeah, so the CGI that they did use, I'm sure, was minimal. Like you said, maybe some touch up, but it certainly is the action packed movie that we expect from a Bond film.
And the other thing we expect
Um,
from a Bond film are something we're almost getting here. Every Bond film up till this point had had Maurice Binder do these opening credit sequences that typically featured outlines of naked ladies twirling around Roger Moore in a sailor suit while shooting lasers out of their lipstick. Now, Morris Binder had died between License to Kill and this, so this one they've got someone new in who's they're trying to make it look as much like Morris Binder as possible. So we
well,
have silhouettes of naked ladies dancing around Russian statues.
yeah, and Mr. Furzel over there in Discord did mention I personally respect that most of these women are actually nude. And yeah, I mean, who can argue with that? This is a classic James Bond opening. It's got Tina Turner.
And
Um,
all the
by
Russian
this time,
iconography is very much tied into the story because this is the first post Cold War James Bond
right.
film because the Soviet Union had inconsiderately collapsed during the 6 years they weren't making any films.
Yes, that's, and I think that goes at the heart of why they brought Brosnan in to revamp and bring new life to the series. Um,
Well, could
they
you because
got they got a new storyline with the Russians, um, and yeah, this does introduce us to kind of a younger, more hip James Bond, even though he's not that young in this. Um, but he's the
he's
age
aged
that Ian
remarkably
Fleming
well in the last
imagined.
9 years. It has to be said.
Yeah,
This is 9 years later from the pre-credits, and he doesn't look a day older.
he doesn't age much. Oh, Helafino said Bono wrote this song. Yes,
And we've
yes.
also got the nice nod to the earlier Bond films that he is driving the Aston Martin from Goldfinger. Although in this case, I believe it was actually TV presenter Jeremy Clarkson's Ferrari, so Aston Martin, that he might have been
Yes.
driving in some of the scenes.
And wasn't this the first one to introduce Bond driving BMW? I believe.
Yeah, unfortunately, that's basically one of these marketing deals they signed, and they are the least Bond cars because anyone could have one.
Yes, Edward the Black Prince. You got to reach the kids, Sharon. Yes. Yeah, I mean it this fit into Ian Fleming's original narrative on who James Bond was. Um, with all there were a lot of other iterations
Hmm.
where James Bond did look a little aged, but still full of the the action. He
Are
still
you
gave us the
really
action that we
about Sean
required.
Connery and Roger Moore and their 1980s films, in which older gentlemen with dad
Yes.
bods engaged
Yeah.
in stuntman to bad guy combat?
And wasn't it in '83 Connery came back and redid
Yeah,
James Never Say Never.
1983 was the
Oh,
Battle of the Bonds. You had Roger Moore in Octopussy and Sean Connery in the Thunderball remake Never Say Never Again.
Never Say
And
Never Again, which was
they're
an interesting choice.
well, it's not really a choice. It's basically this other guy owned the copyright to the story of Thunderball and the rights to make a film of it and only of it. So that if they wanted to do a rival Bond project, they could do that or they could do nothing.
Yeah, and I thought it was a rather yeah, it was a good return for Connery to come back as Bond.
I
Um,
saw
I
I
found it
saw
interesting of doing it when they did.
I saw both of those films at
Hmm.
the cinema with my grandparents, age 6. So I was getting into my cinematic Bond good and early, made me who I am today. I don't think I saw the Dalton ones at the cinema because being Cert 12, they were probably a bit racy for me, whereas the other Bond films were all PGs and so suitable with all their sex and violence for a young child.
That is true. They really did grab the children's audience. I
But
certainly grew up on Bond. I
but it's
think
one of
it
those things
was
you
Roger
wonder
Moore.
how many 6, 10, or 12-year-olds would be watching a Daniel Craig Bond film. Not many, I'm thinking.
I don't think that was the target audience. Whereas a lot of Connery's, Roger Moore, those were definitely kid friendly. Even though James Bond is a kind of, I'm not going to say what's the proper term, um, a little bit dicey at times. A lot of adult content, probably not appropriate for little kids to see. But at the time I was watching it, at what, 8, 9, 10.
The
It,
risque jokes will have gone
yeah, it
straight
was
over your
risque.
head.
It did. It went over my head. I remember seeing Octopussy, and it just went over my head because it was
You,
James Bond.
Octopussy, I was excited by the little plane coming out of the horse box in the pre-credits sequence. There was a great chase with a Mercedes and a train. There's a big fight in a circus. There was all stuff like that to excite me. Who cares about those ladies and what they're doing?
Exactly. Yeah, Miss Swift, is racy the word you're thinking of? Yes, to a certain extent. It's just a very James Bond is a very grown-up themed character, not really designed for a younger audience. However, in the movie form, he does appeal to youngsters. And there's a certain innocence about taking the James Bond, putting him on a big screen in an action packed movie. Because a lot of the adult themed stuff went over my head because as a child, I'm looking at, oh my God, this is James Bond. Okay, I expect to see him in the cars and the action killing people. That was the appeal. And then all the other stuff, of course, he sleeps with every woman. He drinks, he whatever, he smokes on occasion. That didn't matter, and it didn't affect me. Maybe I was weird, maybe I was a weird child, but yeah.
But the, but the truth is, a lot of the violence was always very bloodless, and the sex was almost always very off-screen. So he might have
Yeah.
left a trail of bodies and ladies behind him, but in a way that was really possibly slightly less risque than the TV exploits of Captain Kirk in the 60s.
I there is Yes, yes, I would agree with you. A lot of the deaths, most of the deaths, all of the deaths in the James Bond movies are.
Until License to Kill, where Felix Leiter is fed to a shark and Benedict del Toro is dropped into a meat grinder and you see blood go everywhere, and Anthony Zerb is decompressed and his head blows up. That's
Yeah.
all pretty nasty, but
Yeah, but see, all the other deaths are warranted. And I dig that. I dig that. Yeah, so Eric um, mentions Famke Jensen, a Dutch actress and model, great bad girl in this movie. I 100% agree. She is almost unhinged in this movie. She's off kilter, but oh, I just dig her performance.
I
I
I
love
I
it.
think as a character, Xenia Onatop is very, very much inspired by the female villain from Never Say Never Again, Fatima Blush, who was similarly really, really turned on by the idea of killing Sean Connery's James Bond and was quite sexually thrilled by the whole idea.
Oh, Mad Matt says it was all about the gadgets, hence the appeal of Inspector Gadgets.
Who doesn't like it when Bond has a Lotus that turns into a submarine?
I loved it. That was one of the highlights of the movie, is seeing what new gadgets they give him. Um, I
Which
know
would
in this one,
conveniently be just the gadget to save him at the end of the film.
of course, of course. So he's got in this movie, he's got the laser in the watch.
Which again they've taken from Never Say Never Again. So
Yep.
while that film is kept out as like the black sheep of the family because Eon didn't make it, it does have all these bleed overs into the later films of bits they obviously thought we quite like that, so we'll nick it for one of the proper films. Stay on a top
Okay.
of things.
Of course, here come the puns. Well, with a name like that, Mad Matt, yes. On a Top is over the top. Yes.
I mean,
Maybe she
I
picked her
always
name
think
for a
that with
reason.
stuff like James Bond films, your favourite is probably heavily dictated by which ones you saw first as a child.
Yes. So, yeah, let's ask the chat. What was the first Bond movie that you remember seeing?
I said
Um,
Octopussy in Bideford Cinema in 1983,
yep, I
and I
saw
got to
that.
watch James Bond defuse a nuclear bomb while disguised as a clown.
Oh, oh boy. You know, you can't, yeah, it's just over. Speaking of over the top, there were just some over the top moments. I remember seeing Moonraker in the theater. That might have been my very first one. And that was early 80s. Or although I'm sure I've seen them all at some point, but maybe if someone else's memory is as bad as mine at times, I can't remember which one I saw first. But
Well,
yeah, I remember seeing Moonraker in the theater, and I was probably 11.
yeah. Well, I know I saw Octopussy, Never Say Never Again, and View to a Kill in the cinema. So, grand old age of what, 8, I saw View to a Kill, so I could be scared by Grace Jones.
Oh, oh, another epic song from James Bond. And this was the time that they had, I think in the 80s and 90s, they had a lot of the big performers doing these songs. That was another thing we looked forward to. Some big star coming out with a song that you would hear on the radio all the time. Um, let's see. Oh, Matt is saying if I had to try to think of what was first, it was probably Moonraker. Calbot says in the theater, I first saw Octopussy. So we're all talking about the same time frame, late 70s, early 80s.
Yeah,
Um,
Octopussy is 83, View to a Kill's 85. Because
um,
basically, from 1977 onwards, when they did the Spy Who Loved Me, they'd essentially got the financing locked in place, so they would release a Bond film every 2 years,
yeah.
which they did up to License to Kill, and then you compare that to the absolutely glacial release rate of the Daniel Craig ones, you know, one every half decade or so, if you were lucky.
Well, I think by the time Daniel Craig got to be Bond, and I think he pulled it off. He's a very solid Bond, in my opinion. I think the industry relied so heavily on big budgets, um,
Well,
and
that's what
everything
makes
was just so much bigger. It took longer.
but it's like you look at how expensive, like No Time to Die was. That a bit like the J.J. Abrams Star Trek movies, that on the normal ratio of 3 or 4 times profit budget to be a profit, they'd have to be taking over £1 billion at the global box office to break even, and that's just ridiculous.
But that is the state of Hollywood today, isn't it? You either have to go into independent filmmakers, shoestring budget, and hope to God that it makes a profit,
Because, but,
or
but
you
it's
have to
because,
go all out and
because
get the $1 billion at the box office.
Because the thing is, this wasn't a particularly high budget movie then. It was what, 30, $40 million? The same studio in the same year, with some of the same producers, made The Birdcage, which was essentially 6 people in a room talking. That had a budget of $60 million for
Yeah.
talking. This
This
is doing a globe-trotting action movie on
yeah,
4.
this budget estimated at about 60 million. The box office 356 million. Back then, that would be considered profitable. Oh, yes, we have a comment over in the chat. Edward the Black Prince says Craig sucked after Skyfall. Wasn't Skyfall a jumbled mess of nonsensical garbage, basically?
It essentially relied part of it on the bad guy having an in-depth knowledge of London Underground train times and how the geography of the train track intersected with the London court system.
And that was one that I haven't seen. Um,
It's generally speaking thought of being one of the best Craig films. It's
really?
it's in I didn't like it much, but it is very stylish, much better than Quantum of Solace. I mean, certainly better than Spectre, which really jumps the shark. People moan about the Roger Moore Bond films being silly because they have some jokes in them, but at least they don't reveal that Blofeld is James Bond's father's brother's nephew's cousin's former roommate, and that everything that's ever happened to Bond was part of an evil plot by this man.
Oh, that's classic. Oh, maybe it was Quantum of Solace that was the jumbled mess of garbage. There
Yeah,
was one Craig
Quantum of
movie.
Solace was the one they made during the writers' strike. So
Oh,
they
that
went
must have been the one.
they went into filming with part of a script, and basically Daniel Craig and people were making their scenes up as they went along.
That must have been it. And I think after that, kind of Daniel Craig kind of lost his appeal to me. But he was okay. I liked him. Solid. I believed him to be James Bond. And there seems to be a consensus in the chat that yes, Quantum of Solace was a turd by Johnny Devitt.
Now, we have
Um,
Alan Cumming here as a 1990s computer hacker, Boris, who
yeah,
appears to be heavily inspired, as far as I can see, by Dennis Nedry from Jurassic Park. He has the same
yes,
pop up laughing graphics on his computer when
and the
he's
same
doing his
mannerisms.
hacking. The same mannerisms. That was the year before. Now, given that all their computers just seem to be running MS-DOS, which is text-based, I don't see how it's also doing graphics, but that's just me.
Um, well, yeah, just go along for the ride. Yes, as Miss Swift pointed out, Alan Cumming is the fabulous Nightcrawler, and he is a prolific actor. He's been in a lot of things. He's a lot of those. That guy, I know that guy. Where do I know him from? He was in, I think, the first couple Spy Kids movies, or the first Spy Kid movie. He was in X Men. Um, and let's see, there was another comment. Um, yes, Johnny Devick. They really go for a killing a lot here. Yes.
And
Um,
it has to be worked out that Xenia really, really, really gets excited when she's machine gunning people. It's
oh,
almost as exciting as when she's crushing men between her thighs.
Lily. Oh, she is. Oh, I just love her character. And there was also a comment. So the actress, let me get her name right. Isabella. Okay, how do you pronounce her last name? I want
Scupino?
to Scorp. I'm going to butcher that last name. But yes, there was another comment about her that
Scarupo.
yes, that she and I just saw that where they're speaking favorably of her in this role. Um, but yes, she is one of the few in this later iteration of James Bond, one of the few characters that, as a woman, that I totally believe is as smart as she portrays in this movie.
Well, she's one of the
And
few who actually you get the impression had any sort of life or existence before the movie.
yes, yes, a
Uh,
3D
she is
character,
certainly more
three-dimensional.
convincing than one of her successors, Denise Richards, nuclear
Yes,
scientist, Christmas Jones.
thank you. That is who is bottom of the barrel every time there's a woman of substance in a James Bond movie. I'm always grateful they're not as bad as Denise Richards' performance, who, if you guys are with me on this, I didn't believe for a second she was educated, didn't believe for a second she was what? She portrayed like a nuclear physicist. Yes,
Apart,
the
I mean,
nuclear scientist.
a lot of that I don't think was Denise Richards' fault. They basically didn't give her anything apart from exposition, and
Oh,
their insistence was that she also had to wear that ridiculous boob tube to
oh.
show off her chest at all times.
Well,
So you've,
Hell
so
If I
you've,
Know is also mentioning Richards was there because of her chest.
yeah.
That's all she brought to the role. And it really dragged the movie down. And I
Oh, for
just,
the quality days of Bond ladies like Dr. Goodhead from Moonraker.
you can't, okay, you just can't make that up. And they make these
You
names up.
laugh because
They're
of her name,
laughable.
but I have to point out that Dr. Goodhead, a woman, was also an astronaut and saved the day because she could fly the space shuttle at the end of the film.
But I believed her, right? All the women up to Denise Richards, they did a great job of creating a good female role model, a good female solid character in a James Bond movie, which is just as important as creating a solid James Bond character. It's just as important. So Denise Richard, you know, I'm not dissing her entire career, but that performance almost shattered the whole James Bond franchise for me because of how poor it was, because they let it stand and they just said, yep, this is as good as it gets in this movie. All right, release it to the theaters. It was so bad. Yes, Johnny Devitt, she was a good pilot in Starship Troopers. I liked her in that movie. I
No, I
kind of
sided
believed
with the
that she was
bugs in
intelligent.
Star Trek. The bugs were the victims in Starship
Mhm.
Troopers.
The bugs were the victims.
Yes,
So
the bugs were attacked by
they
Mormon
were.
extremists, remember?
Well, they did come out to. I think they blew up Rio, didn't they? Like the headquarters of this new global base. They
I
came
would
and
probably have said,
destroyed it.
hey, no great loss. It wasn't a very good city anyway.
Oh, okay. So this actress playing Miss Moneypenny, love her. She was a new actress too that came on board, and I don't think she was in
Samantha
a
Bond.
James Bond movie after.
No, she was in all four of the Daniel Craig ones. Not Dan.
Oh, she was. She did
She was
show
in
up.
all the Brosnan ones up to Die Another Day.
Okay. I don't remember her in the other ones. I had better revisit it and do a. I think it was Mr. Furzel, or actually in Discord. I think it was Calbot who was doing a. Oh, I should probably. Yeah, Frag Lord started watching Bond from the start, but having issues finding the time. Almost done with From Russia with Love, so he's doing a whole binge of the
Well,
Bond movies.
now
I
is a
think I'm
good
going to need
time
to do that.
to do. Now is a good time to look at the Connerys again, because they've just this month released all of the Connery films, apart from Never Say Never Again, on 4K disc.
Oh, they just came out.
Yeah.
Seems to me that they released all the Bond movies on 4K a while ago.
No, no, the
Oh,
only ones they did on
James Bond
4K
age.
were the Daniel Craig ones as they released them. So
Mm,
now they're going back and future proofing all the earlier films as well.
yeah, we have some good comments. Oh, Johnny Devick's like, ooh, 4K.
Yeah, and
Six
this is
picture.
interesting. M was changed into a woman in one of the last rewrites on this. That was by the comedy writer Bruce Fierstein, because he said, the whole thing behind the project was they said times have changed, but James Bond is still the same. And Bruce Fierstein reckoned that the only way you could get away with Bond being totally sexist and misogynist would be if you also gave him a female boss who could call him out on it.
Yep. Dame Judy Dench was perfect casting for this.
So you get the evil queen of numbers saying that if she wants sarcasm, she'll get it from her 5-year-old children.
Exactly.
Yeah, I agree with old Johnny Devitt. I was very confused by the Craig films being a reboot series, but having the same M, and also giving the Daniel Craig Bond, the Aston Martin from Goldfinger, and the Aston Martin from The Living Daylights, both of which adventures he'd never had because they weren't part of the reboot continuity. It was just weird fan service stuff. I think you either reboot or you have continuity. You don't do both at the same time.
Well, I think the essence, what they were trying to do is keep the essence alive while updating for modern times, updating the series. So you do have to give and take, um, appeal to the audience of the day, and then we just get what we get. Sometimes it's a hit, sometimes it's a miss. Um, Over there in Discord, Sis Sister says, I just got the Connery set on 4K. I have not watched them yet. So we go back to the basis of the story. And of course, there's always the world is at stake. Um, this has to do with a satellite program that we don't know exactly what how the story unfolds. I don't want to give away too much because I don't know who has not seen this before. There's a lot of twists and turns in this, as with James Bond. But we're going to have the bad guys. We have the Russians as the bad guys. Um, let's see, espionage, stolen satellites, stolen what? Stolen software, you name it. Stolen helicopters.
Mad Matt says the plane crash scene makes him nostalgic for Thunderbirds, which goes back to my call for who did the special effects.
Yeah, Hell if I know is saying 30 years is a good litmus for spoilers. So who hasn't seen this movie? Yeah, give me a shout out if you haven't seen this and you want to know how it ends. You don't want to be, yeah. I mean, we don't have to give spoilers away, but there's some fun little anecdotes if we
James
start
Bond
giving away
dies and goes to
spoilers.
heaven.
It's what?
James Bond dies at the end and goes to heaven.
Oh, well, that's for anyone that doesn't know. I mean, would that be a spoiler? Giving a spoiler away from one of the other movies?
I think that film was a spoiler in and of itself, a
In
spoiler
and
for
of
the whole
itself.
franchise.
I think everybody kind of knew what was going to happen before it was released.
Really they shouldn't have had Daniel Craig back for that last film. I thought that Spectre gave him a nice sign off as Bond driving into the sunset, and
Yeah.
he didn't really want to do it and would only do it if they killed the character off. So why not just change Bonds at that point?
I know. I know. So Matt is saying, I hadn't seen it until today. Okay, so we don't have to give away anything that goes on the end of this, but yeah, the Daniel Craig, the last Bond movie he was in, they kind of already spoiled the end of that movie even before it was released in the theater. Um, and you're right. I don't think they should have done that either. I don't think that is a proper way to end a Bond film.
Well, the whole thing is
Um,
Bond films end with the line, James Bond will return. In the older ones, it was James Bond will return in For Your Eyes Only, or what have you. Now
yeah,
it's just James Bond will return. And if you've just blown him into lots of little pieces, I'm afraid he won't be returning.
we won't be. So then, what do? You've kind of boxed yourself in as the studio, as the owner of James Bond 007. How do you get yourself out of that? The franchise would have to die. Okay, and I'm only coming at it from a fan of James Bond. If you kill him in the end, you're done. You can't bring him back as another actor. You can't
I mean,
reinvent it.
especially in
Um,
the conceit of the film series, at least up until the Daniel Craig films, maybe up until the Brosnan films, was that the Bond who Sean Connery was, who George Lazenby was, who Roger Moore was, they were the same character, having a series of adventures. The same person had done it all, even though it wouldn't really have made sense in terms of time because he'd have been like an 80-year-old or something by the later films.
well, yeah,
But,
by
but
that
they but
definition,
they
The
but they
Simpsons.
include the callbacks in a couple of Roger Moore ones to remind you that his Bond was the same Bond who'd been married to Tracy and widowed. They remind you in one of the Dalton films that he was married to Tracy, which
Mhm.
has the return of the same actor playing Felix Leiter, who was in the first Roger Moore film. You know, they say in one of these that Brosnan's Bond has also got a dead wife. It may not be the same dead wife, but he's got a dead wife.
Right.
And then
Right.
that's all
So
just thrown away with the reboot.
so yeah, and so they did continue him as the character in different actor forms. Um, but then yeah, they just yeah. So this is the problem that I have with franchises at times. And Miss Swift points out, good point. Unless you go with the concept that James Bond 007 is just a name like the dread pirate Roberts. That
Which
is a good point.
which
Okay.
is
Or
the
true.
first time they changed actor to George Lazenby, they did consider that Bond and 007 were just a code name, but then
Yes.
they decided that wasn't the case and made it clear in that film that it was the same character. And then they have the specific callbacks in later films to things that happened in earlier films.
Right. Um, so old Johnny Devick mentions that Pedro Pascal can pick up the role.
I'd really
Yes.
rather not. He's in everything and he's very boring.
But Edward the Black Prince is saying, don't joke about that, Johnny. They'll do it. We'll see. So,
Well,
yes,
there are a couple of very good reasons why they won't. The first is he's too old because they're going to want someone who can do 4 or 5 films. So that means someone aged 30 or just below on their production turnarounds. And the other is they're going to want someone who's relatively unknown
yeah,
because it's like when they were casting for Goldeneye, one of the names the studio was very keen on was Mel Gibson. And there were a couple of big problems with Mel Gibson. Not the problems he has now, but the first one was then he was charging 20 million a movie. So if you've got him 20 million for your first one, what's he going to cost for the second, the third, and the fourth?
Well,
That's
the
like half of
budgets
the,
are
that's
just going to
half of
keep
the
going
budget
up.
gone.
You're right. You're right.
And then the
Um,
other problem is with someone who's known, do they have other franchises or other projects? Because Mel Gibson had Lethal Weapon on the boil at the same time. So if you'd hired a Mel Gibson, you can't lock down production of another Bond film after Goldeneye because he's got other projects on the go. And that's the same reason why now they're not going to be looking at people like Pedro Pascal, who are well known, because they're expensive. They've got other projects in the book. They're going to be looking for someone who's probably known from the telly. That's about it. Who will be cheap for their first few multi-film contract.
well, um, yeah. So the problem with franchises in general is they tend to run their course, and they have a life, and they should have a death, which is appropriate. But a lot of things are at play. They've they've already okay, so they've killed Bond. Bond is officially dead. If they were to bring him back, as the discussion in the chat is, so would it be like a Doctor Who scenario? Would it be that they bring someone back to just take over the name and the designated 007? Well, if that's the case, then why the
It,
drama killing him in the first place? Um,
it will
and bringing
it
the
will just
franchise to continue on when it shouldn't continue.
it will be a reboot the same way the Craig films were. They'll start with a different Bond who wasn't the other Bond, and then just carry on in their Denis Villeneuve depressing colour palette film.
Yeah. Well, what's standard in James Bond? Okay, we get the gadgets. This is an epic scene. Now we get to see the gadgets he gets to play with.
Or the car that he notably doesn't get to play with in the
He
film.
doesn't get to play with. But this is just like Batman's secret research lab, and he gets all of his cool toys.
Yeah,
And as a kid, we wish we had these.
but these have been a nice thing instead of all the Bond films up until this point that you'd have the sequence where he'd walk through a pyramid or somewhere that had been turned into a temporary QHQ, and behind each door there'd be agents fighting one another or being eaten by sofas, or as is about to happen, probably a phone box.
A phone box. He was
Obviously, lots
one of the most enjoyable characters, I gotta say. This tool will come in handy. Oh, Cowbot, that's a wonderful gif. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Bruce Wayne with his gadgets in his car. Gotta love it. Oh yes, Matt. Gadget exposition or Q-tips. Very clever.
as
Aha, guys, pay attention to the pen. That is a cool gadget.
as we all know, there is only one Bruce Wayne.
Oh, who is your favorite Bruce Wayne? Let's hear it.
Millionaire playboy Bruce Wayne.
Who's
And
your
his
favorite?
Adam West.
I gotta say, I grew up on Adam West, but Michael Keaton is right up there as far as I'm concerned. Christian Bale does a great job, but it will be Michael Keaton and Adam West. So, actually, fun fact: um, there was the original actor who Ian Fleming originally wanted to play James Bond, David Niven, was almost going to play it instead of Connery, but Connery was cast. Has anybody seen David Niven's? What is it? He was in Casino Royale. He got a one shot at like
It's a
Bond.
it's a spoof film. Again,
It's
it's
right,
basically someone got the rights to one of the books in the 60s, and they
right, but
did
it
this
wasn't the
massive.
sanctioned series.
It's not part of the series.
Right.
It has David Niven, Woody Allen, and various other people in. The irony is that David Niven could actually genuinely have been James Bond. He's probably the only Bond actor who could take pretty much anyone in a fight, given that in the Second World War he was a commando.
Yeah, he was just I think a little too old, but
But
I
I'm
never
part of
saw
that stuff
his Casino Royale.
with Fleming's casting choices. Part of it is with him wanting Niven or Cary Grant. Is that Fleming saw himself as Bond, so he's naturally picking people who would reflect well on him.
Yeah, sis sister. Oh God, not that Casino Royale. I hated that one. That was yeah, that was David Niven's one shot, and that was back in I want to say 64,
67.
67. Yep, and then of course the what is it? Daniel Craig was in Casino Royale. Was it Daniel Craig? Yes, in the
Yeah,
later one.
that was basically after Eon had managed to get the rights back to the
Yeah,
two Bond novels they'd lost the rights to. So at that point, they got back the rights to Thunderball and Casino Royale, which meant no one else could run around trying to launch endless remakes of Thunderball like Kevin McClory had been doing.
yeah. All right, let's. Oh, that was 67. Yes. Okay. So there was a documentary a couple years ago on George Lazenby, who was also Bond. He was Bond one time on Her Majesty's Secret Service. I don't know if anybody else caught that documentary. Um, and it was a lot of Lazenby's background, how he got the role, and he was slated to play James Bond continuously, but he was the one that kind of got cocky
Yeah,
and thought, I'm a big
well,
star, I don't need this anymore, and he said, forget this.
hiring Lazenby was again their idea that what they do is they get someone who isn't a star and make him their star, someone they could shape and control.
Yeah, he was a model
Unfortunately,
before.
unfortunately, it all went to Lazenby's head.
Yeah,
He had an agent who gave him really bad advice, and it all depends now who you believe about it. Lazenby says that he turned down future films and that he quit. The other people who were there at the time say Cubby Broccoli fired him
and you know
because
what?
he was so difficult to work with and actually wasn't very good.
I think in Lazenby's head, I believe both stories can be true. He was he was probably slated from the beginning to just continue on as Bond. Um, he got so full of himself that he assumed, okay, well they're going to give it to me. They don't have anyone else, but I don't need them anymore. I'm a big deal. I can write my own ticket. And so in his head, when he said I turned it down, he walked away from it. So from the studio perspective, we fired him. I think they both can be true at the same time, but
Yeah,
I would tend to think the studio never really gave him that firm offer in the first place. There was no contract for the next one. There was nothing in writing. And
I think what it would have been is that they would have Eon would have had an option to give him further films,
that,
and they
yeah,
went, "No, thank you."
No, thank you.
And that's the first time the franchise is in real trouble because that film underperformed at the box office and they had to beg and borrow Connery to come back for one more film, but he would only do one more. And that's why then Roger Moore is so important to the survival of the franchise because his success in the role proved you could recast James Bond and continue making hit films. Whereas up until that point, it was starting to look very much like unless you had Sean Connery, you didn't have James Bond.
Exactly. Exactly. James Bond, at the beginning, it was Connery. He shaped that role. He was in what, seven movies? Six at the beginning? So he made that role. Um,
But it's also why when we talked about the Battle of the Bonds in '83,
right.
that you get some people love Connery's Never Say Never Again because they prefer Connery as Bond. But overall, people first of all, it lost out at the box office to the Roger Moore film. And
Right.
one of the reasons why people think it's possibly not as successful is because although Big Plus, it's got Connery in it, and Bond is going up against people with sharks with lasers attached to their heads. On the other hand, it's not got the support cast that you know from the Bond franchise. So it's not got the actors playing M, Q, and Moneypenny. It's
Yeah.
not got a John Barry style score. It's not got the gun barrel at the start, the pre-credit sequence, the
Yeah.
naked
Good
ladies
point.
dancing, all the things like that, that as well as the actor make it a Bond film. And we're just seeing Valentin Zukovsky, who eagle-eyed viewers might remember was a nun on the
On the
run.
run. And a cameo by Minnie Driver.
Who was
Yeah,
paid a
Mr.
grand
Puzzle got
total
it.
of $5,000 for this scene.
Woohoo.
She was obviously at the time not famous, but was
Nope.
basically friends with either one of the producers or the director.
Was this a credited role for her? Because that's a big deal when you're trying to break into the business to get a credited role.
I
Yes,
think,
Miss Swift, Agent 007 Hagrid, you're a wizard, Bond. Absolutely.
yeah, she is. It's a credited role.
Yep.
Irina.
So, if memory serves, Nuns on the Run, that came out in what, late 80s? I'm drawing a blank.
Let me
Ah,
just let me
does
do
anyone
my
remember?
research.
It
1990, Nuns on the Run.
There you go.
1991, The Pope Must Die. 1995, Goldeneye.
There you go. And then the first Harry Potter movie came out in what, 2011? 2012?
2001,
Oh, wait a
two,
minute. Oh my gosh, 2001. That's right. Oh my God.
and then the last one he's in was 2011.
2001. I was trying to remember because I had two young kids and my oldest two are now grown on their own. It was that long ago.
Well, I have never seen a Harry Potter film and have no intention of ever seeing a
Oh,
Harry Potter film.
well, even as a grown up, I read the books before I saw the movies, and I was quite impressed. And they still hold up today.
Generally, I kind of draw a line with I don't enjoy fantasy literature or films, so it doesn't matter whether it's Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings, or even Arnie and Conan. They're just not things that really
Oh,
interest me.
oh. Well, but you're
They,
talking about
they
reading.
especially don't interest me if they were Hawk the Slayer.
Well, but how about in movie form?
That was Hawk the Slayer.
Yeah. Are you Lord of the Rings? You ever see Lord of the Ring movies?
They also break some of my cardinal rules for films, like being not 3 hours long.
Oh, yeah. But they don't feel 3 hours after you're done.
No, they feel 6 hours.
Well, it's, if you're sitting in one place for the 3 hours, 3.5 hours, you get up and your knees feel it, your feet feel it. You know you've been sitting for 3.5 hours. Well, us, when you get to be my age, you feel it. I think you young kids out there, you could probably do that no problem. 5, 6 hours, and you're sitting, you can get up no problem.
Cowbot is heinously saying that never say never, never again is kind of boring. It has some of my favourite Connery gags in. I think my favourite is where Fatima Blush water skis into James Bond at a bar, and she goes, "You're all wet." He goes, "Yes, but my martini's still dry."
So there was a discussion before about, we have not talked about this incarnation, this movie incarnated as a video game. Um,
I,
let's
I take it the video game did not feature a video game Xenia on a top trying to crush the player between her thighs.
Between her legs. I don't think so. I don't know. I've never played the game. I was aware of it. I think in the what is it, the N64. Um, I
Yeah,
do know it was highly regarded.
I think my
Uh,
younger sisters had it, and it seemed to involve lots of character. Well, the James Bond playable character running around shooting people.
yeah, there was a discussion in Discord. Was it Mr. Furzel that had talked about the game? So I'm interested if anyone out there had played the game when it came out. Was it as good as what, as the critics, as people have said it is?
It was a
Uh,
massive hit as a game. So I'm presuming that for people who like that sort of thing, it was good.
mhm.
I obviously can speak with zero experience because I've never had a game platform of any sort.
Oh, um, yeah, I remember the Nintendo, the Super Nintendo. There were other versions that I had growing up, and then you get into adulthood, and I kind of got away from that. So this, I think the N64 was a platform I did not have, was not familiar. I might have known people that did play this game. And Mr. Fergal is saying it was one of the best video game adaptations you ever found, and the multiplayer was probably the biggest selling point. Multiplayer. Miss Swift is also saying the game was awesome. Yeah, and of course, this was before the internet, so in order for multiplayer, you actually had to be in the same room, right? Yeah, those were the days when you actually had to have friends over.
The internet was just about there. I mean, I was at university in my first year when I
Mhm.
saw this. We were firmly in the days of dial-up networking.
Hmm. In '95, yeah,
I
I
mean,
suppose. I don't remember the internet really taking hold until what, the late '90s.
yeah, no, I remember at university we definitely had a computer room with the internet.
Yeah.
I didn't have a computer myself until, well, we were in a different century. I was having to do my university dissertations on a manual typewriter.
I remember those days. I went to college from 86 to 91. Everything was on the typewriter. Oh boy. Mad Matt, ironically, I missed out on playing games through the 90s because I managed a video arcade. How does that work? You're so busy managing it, you had no time for fun, I bet. Yeah, it seems if you managed a video arcade, you should be playing the games too. Oh, here we go. 006 is a traitor. And I bet at this point, having a 00 agent um, as
But this,
a turncoat like this,
I mean,
they
effectively, this is one of the first times we ever really seen anything of a double O agent beyond
right.
Bond. Previously, you had one dressed as a clown at the start of Octopussy who got murdered, which effectively sets up the mystery that Bond then investigates. And at the start of the Living Daylights, you get a series of them murdered by an assassin, which again sets up the mystery Bond investigates. So until this point, they're just there to be plot devices. You know, it's
Yeah,
like,
and now we want
oh dear,
one.
Bond, 003 has been killed horribly. You'd better go and find out why.
Well, but this is like a big deal by having one of them turn bad.
You mean unlike it, say, in Starfleet, where every admiral turns bad at some point?
Is that
Even
what happens when you get to be
Admiral James
in
T. Kirk
charge?
will hijack a ship at the slightest excuse.
Oh, oh, you watch your mouth on that. But it's hard to imagine the characters we have grown to love. But the bad ones, oh yeah, when they turn evil, yeah, now we just want, well, I'm not going to give away the ending. So this is interesting. If you want to kill someone in any kind of movie, if you want to kill someone, you kill them. You don't tie them up. You don't hold a gun and give 10 minutes of exposition, um, or
Look,
find
this is
ways.
2 years before Austin Powers. It's still perfectly acceptable to come up with a convoluted means of killing someone. You
Yep.
don't just shoot them in the head. It's not dramatically pleasing. So
And you
go back
make it
to
a
your
long
room,
drawn
Sharon
out.
Eagle.
But in movies, sometimes it's just comical.
Yeah,
And
but
I find
you
myself
also
shouting at the screen, just shoot him! Shut up and just shoot him.
But you also have the thing where it's not just a convoluted way of killing them. It's the fact that usually, especially in a Bond film, the villain at this point would suffer from what Roger Ebert used to refer to as like the talking man syndrome, where they'd feel the need to explain their plan and just how you could foil it.
Yep. And it's the unneeded exposition. You don't tell the good guy, if you're a bad guy, you don't tell the good guy your plan, your weaknesses, and that you're going to be giving them a chance to live. No, you shoot them in the head, done. Yeah, Mr. Furzel, I have a gun in my room. I'll go get it. We can shoot him together. It'll be fun. Yeah, but you know what? What fun would it be to shoot 007 in the head and be done with it, then movie over? And with the Black Princess, yes, Sharon, you just don't get it. You don't. I don't. But I enjoy it in a movie. But in real life, if you want to, yeah, and we don't have to go down that road. But if you want to off someone, this is not how to do it. Miss Swift, very good point. Remember what Watchmen taught us: only monologue if you've executed your plan half an hour before the heroes arrive.
Well, I kind of think my favourite talking villain is probably Gene Hackman's Lex Luthor in Superman the movie, where where not only is it all a trap to put some kryptonite around Superman's neck, but anyway, he's taken the precaution of, well, an accident really, of firing two missiles. So as fast as Superman is, he can't stop them both.
Well, that was a very good plan. But
Just
explaining to
unfortunate that one.
Superman your plan was not a good idea.
It was just unfortunate that one of the missiles turned out to be aimed at Hackensack, New Jersey, and Miss Teschmacher's wife mother
Yeah,
lived in
yeah,
Hackensack, New Jersey.
yeah.
Not anymore.
Well, yeah, and I think Superman was honorable in getting that missile first. Um,
I think after Batman 66, Superman the movie remains my favourite superhero film.
well, because of that, Christopher Reeve will be forever known as Superman to me. Every other Superman after that, even George Reeves in the TV show, which I used to watch in reruns way back when, Christopher Reeve is Superman to me.
Well, I think the thing that was so good about his films, even the bad ones, is that he took it all very seriously and played it with total sincerity when it would be very easy to camp it up. But because the producers knew that basically a man in tights with underpants on the outside and a cloak is inherently silly, they knew there still had to be humour there, but they kept it to the other characters and the things surrounding it, which let them take Superman himself deadly seriously.
Old Johnny Devick is saying Superman the movie is still the best. Spider Man 2 and Blade 1 also have some staying power. Yes, that is true. Oh, Johnny Devick says, I'll take Supergirl the movie over most recent trash, anyways. Um, yeah. Interesting, though, about Supergirl. Are you talking about the original Supergirl with what, Helen Slater? Um, that was, you
Peter
know what,
Cook.
that was, I'm sorry, what?
And Peter Cook.
Yeah. It was not a bad movie. I remember the last time I watched it was with you guys for the watch party. It was enjoyable. It was fun. Um, yeah, and in some ways, I would take it over some of the trash these days. It's so hard these days to find something enjoyable to watch that keeps my interest. And I don't know if you guys have the same problem. Um, and that's, well, let's ask you guys this question again. So I put out on YouTube this poll about if I was to maybe do another hour a week strictly on content that we're watching, if you guys would like to join in some conversations, because when I do find something that is highly entertaining and engaging, I would love to talk about it. When my schedule kind of calms down a little bit, I would like to maybe try that once or twice and see who joins me, who has time, maybe an hour, maybe, and we just talk about stuff that I'm excited about, that you're excited about. There's just so much garbage out there in the movie theaters, on TV. Um, the one thing I am looking forward to is Stranger Things season 5. That's not coming out till the end of the year.
I'm looking forward to Star Trek Strange New Worlds season 3.
There you go. Maybe I ought to check out the first couple seasons.
It's, I would say, it's the best, if not the only good one of the various modern Star Trek shows. Although I will admit, I also really enjoyed the Lower Decks cartoon series.
I used to watch cartoons maybe when my kids were a lot younger. I'm having a hard time getting into cartoons these days, but I'm not opposed to it if it's engaging and
It's
well
made
done.
by people who love Star Trek and have watched a lot of old Star Trek, so it's jam packed full of
There we go.
references.
There you go. You know what? Before we move on, I want to give a shout out, and I was meaning to do this last week, and I just ran out of time. I want to do a quick shout out to Onzi and Eric, and I know there's someone else involved in the management and maintenance of the Discord channel that we're on. Um, I want to give a shout out to them because without them, I wouldn't be able to have the chat on Discord as it is. They're the ones that got the Discord channel up and running, and they allowed me to come in with this watch party and set up my channel. They're the ones that are doing it all on Discord, and I just am so grateful that I know Anzi and Eric are involved. If there's anybody else involved in that, please let me know. I
I
want to
think
give
we've
credit
just got up
to
to the
them.
highlight of the film. The,
Yes. Oh, the tank chase. Yes. Let's talk about the chant.
a
Yes.
all nice, real driving tanks over cars and through buildings action. What
Okay.
more could
But
you want?
007 does have a license to kill. So that means he can just kill whoever he wants. He has a license for it.
Uh,
So he can just do it.
it also has a very entertaining guest appearance at any moment now from one of the companies that's clearly sponsoring the film. And you will know at that moment which brand of refreshing bottled water you should be rushing out to buy for all your hydration needs.
Mad Matt, tanks for the memories.
Yeah, but well, this is one of these that all Bond films usually used to have one of these centerpiece action sequences that you never get elsewhere. So like License to Kill had a chase sequence with the petrol tankers full of heroin. Spy Who
There's
Loved
always
Me
a car
had the
chase.
Lotus that turned into a submarine.
Well, there's you have to have the car
For,
chase. So we've
for your
elevated
eyes,
to now a tank.
for your eyes only, had the Citroen 2CV.
Oh, it's just so funny. You're right.
Straight
This is
goodbye.
oh, Johnny Devick says this scene is so funny. It is laughable. You do have to chuckle. Okay, there, a tank versus vehicles, but these roads were not made for tanks to be driving it, and it's amazing he got as far as he is.
Well, this was obviously also all filmed on location where they had to mock up some bits on the side of genuine Russian buildings for them to smash down. And obviously, it's again something that they really wouldn't be allowed to shoot on location nowadays for obvious reasons.
Well, this is if anyone is aware, like many years ago, there was in a small town in middle America, I believe, there was this unhinged man who built himself a tank and went rogue through the main street through the town, and he was unstoppable. He went through buildings. He was trying to kill whoever it was he thought was responsible for his woes in life. And he did. He took it through a building, and eventually that's what stopped him because of the basement that he did not know. The
Would
building
you
had
like a nice glass
um,
of water, Sharon?
Perrier. And none of those cans are full. None of them. You don't see water spurting everywhere. That's a lot of Perrier.
I'm sure Perrier has a full delivery route around Moscow.
Oh, okay. Over on Discord. Okay, that's classic. A tank with the horse statue on top. Who
Yeah,
writes this stuff? That is comical.
but the whole
Yeah,
point of a big action sequence like this
yeah. It
is
is. It's about the
is
action sequence.
it's something you only get in a Bond film.
You're right.
You wouldn't get something like this in the contemporary action films like Die Hard with a Vengeance or Lethal Weapon 4. You get other good stuff, but you would not get a tank chase and a tank facing off with an armored train.
Okay, the comment over in Discord, Mr. Furzel is mentioning they are doing a Supergirl Women of Tomorrow film. Did not know that. They're also this new Superman movie I've been seeing trailers for. Mr. Furzel is saying I'm going to go see Superman on July 8th. Um, I have concerns over seeing the most recent trailers, but if Gunn nails it, then Supergirl should be okay. I'm interested, Mr. Furzel, if you can come back and give us your comment. I am interested because from what I've seen of the trailers, I'm kind of on the fence on that. I
That,
just don't
that
know.
Superman film is the people who liked Henry Cavill and the Snyder stuff are running a real hate campaign against it based on the fact
Mm,
that it's not made by their man, it's not got
mhm.
their actor in, and so apparently nothing about it could possibly be good.
I will give it a chance. I am totally in favor of Henry Cavill. That was actually the last movie I saw in the movie theater was Man of Steel back in 2012. Yes, that is a very long time ago. But I think he nailed it. I was very pleased with it. So looks like Edward the Black Prince is also going to go see it on July 10th. So I am very curious as to the comments on it. Not just from like the reviewers online. I don't really care about that. Like honest people, real people seeing it in the theater, give it a chance. What do you think?
This is also a point of geography that doesn't make much sense to me. I don't see how the tank has got down the road ahead of the train,
Because it drove really fast.
which tanks are not noted for doing.
Right. Well, this one did. This one knew exactly where the train was going and made it there ahead of time.
Yeah,
Or
Frank
the train was really
Frank
slow.
Lord saying he likes Superman Returns. I like Superman Returns too, and unfortunately, that was one of these films that basically it got a load of the budget allocated to it from about a decade's worth of failed Superman projects, which meant Hollywood accounting said it could never make a profit.
Oh, there is quite a discussion going on about MCU, DC, and the Superman franchise. Yes, very interesting. The Superman franchise, I think, is another one that I could have brought into these summer movies, but I felt like we've already done Superman, Superman 2, Superman 3. Didn't we also do Superman 4?
I
I
don't
think we
think
did them
we
all.
did. I think you mainly said we were definitely not doing Superman 4.
We did, yeah. Did we not do? And I won't do it because I can't
We
remember.
did not do
Did we do?
Superman 4.
Oh, I won't do it.
The Quest for Milton Keynes.
I won't do it. I'm not opposed to maybe some of the other Superman iterations. We still have to do a Batman. Maybe I'll bring another Superman
Dean
in.
Kane. Dean Kane.
Dean Kane is Superman. You okay?
I used to watch Lois
Okay.
and Clark on television.
Yeah, that was a decent show. But there's a whole lot of people in the audience now who's saying they won't do four either. Yeah, I'm not gonna do it.
I think they're saying we didn't do 4, not that we won't do 4.
We won't do it. But I thought because we've pretty much done, we've done all the Star Wars, all the Star Trek. We've done the main Superman ones, but we have not gotten into
We've not done Star Trek the
Batman.
motion picture.
Star Trek: The Motion Picture might be. I'm on the fence about that. It's a great
I
movie. I loved it,
I
but
think
it's kind of slow.
with its new director's edition, it's a lot pacier than the old
Mm.
theatrical cut.
Yeah, the simply because I'm a Star Trek fan, I watch it. It's just a little too slow.
The word you're looking for is thoughtful.
That's the word.
It's not like I'm asking that we watch the special extended TV version that's 3.5 hours long.
Oh, that would be a long time to keep you guys in one sitting.
I'm not
That's
like
pretty
I'm
long.
asking for that, or asking that we watch the super duper extended cut of Waterworld.
Oh, what's that? 4.5 hours, right?
About 3.5 hours again.
4.5. There you go.
Look, you get to watch Kevin Costner drink his own urine. How more dystopian could that film possibly get?
Um,
He didn't have access
well,
to a nice can of Perrier.
um, for a 3.5 hour to 4 hour watch party, I would have to do intermissions. I would have to bring snacks. We'd do bathroom breaks, and just make a day of it. Oh, and speaking of which, so I am thinking about doing a bonus watch party for threads because I know I'm kind of getting like maybe 50% of you want me to do threads as a watch party.
Oh,
But it is a really heavy movie that maybe if I pick another time during the week, maybe I pick it up as another watch party and I reserve our time here
I
for
think you should
doing
do it as a special Christmas Day or Thanksgiving watch
maybe.
party.
I am not opposed to picking up extra days here and there and reserving this time as our
Quite right. Mad
main
Max
time.
says no bathroom breaks during the
Water break.
extended Waterworld
Right.
screening. They're
Oh,
just
that's
refills.
yeah. And Miss Swift is saying the special editions of all the Lord of the Ring movies. Yes, minimum 4 hours.
There's a special edition of Superman the movie that runs about 4 hours long that they did for American television because back then they put in a load of extra footage so that the TV network could show it over 2 nights.
Was it in the UK? I'm not familiar
No, no,
with that.
US network showing
Oh,
of Superman the movie. They did it as two-hour movies over 2 nights, and
that is
it's
interesting. I did not know that. You're not talking about the Donner. You're talking about the original Superman, right? Not the.
I'm talking about the original one.
Okay.
It's something that was actually quite common in the 70s for them to make a bit of extra money selling it to the TV networks, because it meant the network got two nights of Superman premiere rather than one.
Mad Matt is also mentioning padded runtime. Yes. So they extend it for a two night, and then you can edit the commercials in. Yeah, Johnny Devick. The Donner cut was for the second. So
Yeah,
that's what I was thinking. If you do the Donner cut and you patch the extra footage in for two, but for the first one, um,
it's
yeah,
got
I was not aware of
well,
that.
there's more stuff with Lex and Otis, more stuff with Miss Teschmacher. The bit that surprised me is there's more stuff with Superman flying about, saving people and things. I assumed it'd just be like character stuff they added in, but nope, there's full on flying action.
Ah, I will have to check that out. It's probably just a lot of the like bonus features, extended scenes, deleted scenes. Maybe they put back in. Um, and at some point, I'm sure I've seen those scenes before, just not in that TV version. Yeah, Miss Swift, just like the Aliens version that played on TV, had lots of deleted scenes.
Well, that Aliens version will have been the Cameron director's cut, special edition, or whatever the hell he wanted to call it.
Sith Sister. It was shown on ABC back in the day, and it's available on BD or streaming. I
Yep.
have pretty much all the versions you can think of between discs and streaming services.
Yeah, I've got the Blu-ray release somewhere of the TV version of Superman, and had a pleasant couple of evenings watching it. Always got time for more Lex and Otis, and
Yeah.
more Lex beating up Otis.
Especially the cast, spot on casting. So, how far are we into this movie? Okay, so we've got about a half hour left. They're still in the middle of this crisis in the movie.
We
And
have Joe Don
so they're just,
Baker as the CIA exposition guy.
yes. And so they have to have like this romantic interlude. It's like they're on vacation. I guess women can't resist James Bond, I guess. So in the middle of
Look,
a crisis, you're going to sleep with him.
the closest he's had to a sexual encounter is Xenia Onatop in this film. He needs a lady.
He does. He needs a proper lady.
Instead, he's got Joe Don Baker. And I
Yeah,
did
he's a good
wonder
character.
why Joe Don Baker was cast in this, because obviously he'd played a villain just two James Bond films prior. But I'm guessing the real reason he's in this is that he'd previously worked with director Martin Campbell on his TV series Edge of Darkness, where he was rogue US agent Darius Jedburgh.
That's a good accent on your part.
Edge of Darkness, great TV series, not a great Mel Gibson movie.
Just a little lull in the action. So that was that BMW that James does not get to drive.
Yeah, and it's kind of the reason for that is they thought they had to give him a car, but they'd not really got the budget to stage an extra action sequence with it in. Because as I said, this film was, for its time, quite a cheap one. So that's why when they do Tomorrow Never Dies, a lot of the things that happen in that are reactions to making this. So he didn't have a scene with the car in this. So they make sure he's got a scene backseat driving the BMW in that one. Ms. Swift has shared a picture of Joe Don Baker in Walking Tool, where he knew how to crack heads. Of course, Joe Don Baker died only a few weeks ago.
Oh, I did not hear about that.
What was that? Was he Sheriff Buford Pusser in Walking Tool?
Oh, good memory. Was that his name?
Yeah, it was based on a true story about some deep south sheriff who cleaned up his town by basically beating people up. And it was remade, what, about 10 years ago with Dwayne The Rock Johnson as Buford Pusser. I think that it was one of those films that it's not necessarily that well remembered, but was like a massive hit on the US drive-in circuit. So they ended up doing two or three sequels with someone else as Sheriff Buford Pusser.
I remember the 2004 remake. Um, I never really got into Dwayne Johnson, The Rock, as an actor. Um, that's probably why I passed on it.
So Bo Svensson played him in the sequels to the original, but that was kind of
So,
that was kind of Joe Don Baker's big leading
oh,
role.
hell if
Because
I
I
know
think
is saying The Rock's version was better. So, Walking Tall was 1973. The remake was 2004. And the original was an actual box office success. Budget of 500,000, box office was upwards of 40 million. That's a
and that
success.
and that will just be US box office because
Yeah.
worldwide figures for stuff back then are very hard to come across. And that was really
Oh,
his starring role because after that he's mainly doing sort of character stuff and villainous turns.
yeah. He's got a long filmography. I recognize him, and he was like, I know that guy. Good question. Johnny Devick is saying, name one great The Rock movie. I
Well, that
couldn't
would
tell
be
that.
The Rock starring Nicolas Cage and Sean Connery.
Oh,
Next question.
um, The Rock I thought was a good solid movie.
Or is he
Yeah, but
meaning one that stars Dwayne
the,
Johnson?
exactly. Name a great movie that he was in.
Right, I'm having a look
Um,
through his filmography. I'm seeing a lot of
yeah.
wrestling.
Um, Hell if I know. The Rundown was that. I'm
He
familiar
dies
with
at the
him as
start
an
of the
actor.
other guys. The other guys was funny.
Was he in that? That was Will
Yeah,
Ferrell.
he and is it Samuel L. Jackson are the hipster freebird cops who jump off a building and die at the start.
Um,
Other than
yeah,
that, I'm seeing a big load of nothing I would ever watch on his.
yeah. I think he's been in a lot of stuff, and he's still in the box office today.
Scorpion King
But
watch party, anyone?
But yeah, I couldn't tell you any great movies he was in. Um, he's just, to me, he's not a box office draw.
He's in lots of Fast and Furious films, but I don't think they're films people go to see because of the
Of him.
actors.
Yeah. Oh yeah, this is a great scene. She is just loving torturing him a little too much. It kind of just makes me smile. How much fun she's having. There's just something enjoyable about watching a woman go crazy like this. And I'm not being sexist or anything, um, but I rarely get to see this. And you don't see this in a Bond film that often. Um, I only wish that her demise would have been a bit more brutal, like her actually getting pulled through the trees and getting torn apart. That would have been epic. But that would have not made a PG rating. Um, Miss Swift is saying the Mummy Returns. Yeah,
That's not a rock movie.
it was. He was in the Scorpion King,
Oh, he is in The Mummy
right?
Returns, but I wouldn't say that's a Dwayne Johnson movie because he's not the star of it. It's Brendan Fraser.
Yeah. Sith's sister it made a good point. He works well in an ensemble, but he hasn't broken into quite that leading man status. He can't seem to break through that wall to get there. I totally agree with that. So interesting. You were talking about the geography of the dam scene in the beginning.
Yeah,
The scene here with this satellite dish, for anyone that is not familiar, the pictures of this, the images of this, it was actually an observatory
it's the
that collapsed.
Arecibo, is it?
It's what?
Trying to remember, they used a real observatory for this. I'm just trying to remember which one.
They did. I know it started with like what is it, a skimbo or something like that.
Arecibo.
Yep, and it was a real location. For decades it was an observatory, but what, 10, 15 years ago, one of the main cables broke and they had to let it go dormant, and eventually it collapsed. And they caught it
Yeah,
on video of it collapsing.
relatively recently. It's 2020 that it collapsed.
Yep. And it was what, evacuated in I think 2015 or 2016 when that cable broke.
And I believe the same dish features in, I think, the season 2 premiere of The X-Files, where Mulder is drawn there by signals that could be from little green men.
Little green men. Yeah, good job. The chat also got that. Eris, how do you pronounce it? Arecibo?
Arecibo.
Arecibo. Yes, that damn scene. Sis Sister says, I think it's also in Contact from 97. Could be.
I have never seen that film.
Oh,
It's one I think I should
mhm.
because it's a Robert Zemeckis film, and his films are either very good or very bad. But for
In my opinion, you'll like it a lot.
yeah,
And I saw it within the last month or two. Um,
it's just you
Very
read
solid.
read the description on the back of the Blu-ray case, and the plot sounds a lot like Species, but without sexy alien women.
Right. There's no sexy alien women in that movie. But it,
But you know what I mean? Our
yeah,
species, they get the signal from aliens that
signal.
tells
Yep.
them how to build the sexy alien woman.
Yep.
Contact, they get a signal from aliens that tells them to build not a sexy alien woman.
Right. But it like a transport device. That's yes, you get instructions from space.
So I think we should do a
Very solid
sleazy
movie.
sci-fi like Species.
Oh, Mr. Furzel agrees. He says that's a cool film. For Carl Sagan, yes. But I think Contact runs a bit long. I think that's what, a 2.5 hour movie, but well worth your time.
I think it's all that's the runtime may well be why it's one of these ones I've had sitting around for ages.
Yeah,
And at 10 o'clock at night or something, I'm thinking of putting on a film and look at the runtime and go, no.
no, yeah. Um, but and it does also have Gary Busey's son in it, and it's kind of an all-star cast: Matthew McConaughey, Jodie Foster. Who else? Tom Skerritt is in it. Um, yeah, who else? Off the top of my head. Also about Contact, it was one of the movies that I saw that made me actually believe there could be alien life out there. And if so, this is how we would come to discover it. Very believable. Thank you, Miss Swift. Angela Bassett. Yes. Yep. So, with all of this liquid spilling out of this container, wouldn't they have some kind of monitoring system that says, hey, guys, we have a leak somewhere? Hey, guys, check it out. We have a leak. But no, that would be too easy.
I mean, I think when they made this base already looked quite old-fashioned and dated. I mean, not just the CRT computers, but the big
Yeah,
tanks of liquid nitrogen all over the
yeah.
place.
Jody Devick agrees this base is a CRT heaven.
I mean, it was one of the worries they had when making the film because previously you'd had relatively recently True Lies come out that had kind of sent up a lot of James Bondy tropes, and there was kind of the question of whether James Bond would still be able to cut it anymore.
True Lies is a very solid Schwarzenegger movie. I know for years and years it had like it was in the nether regions of the streaming services and you couldn't find it anywhere. Um,
Yeah, it had a 4K and Blu-ray
yeah,
release last year, and then went on to all the paid streaming services. I mean, unfortunately, they've done horrible things to the James Cameron 4Ks, where he's kind of gone through and removed all the film grain, things like that.
hmm.
Because he doesn't think film should look like film.
Well, maybe it's just maybe I'm the oddball, but I just prefer a regular DVD high def version, sometimes 4K, and now they're even coming out with 8K. Sometimes it's just a little bit too perfect where my eye will catch it and there's just something off about it. I don't mind a little grain. I don't mind a little, a little fuzzy here and there.
Yes, Edward the Black Prince in True Lies, they do indeed look like wax. He has done very straight. Well, the AI Cameron used has
Mm.
done very strange things to people's faces.
Oh, maybe I ought to check it out just to see how weird it is.
It's still a very good film, an
Yeah.
absolute blast, and would make a good watch party. It just doesn't look anything like it did when I saw it in the cinema. And I just
Yeah.
kind of wish that people would stop meddling around with films and release the version that I'm familiar with.
Amen. Amen. Sith's sister is saying, I have the 4K, but I also have the Laserdisc, so I can enjoy the old school version and the new version.
Laser discs are the format that I never picked up on because by the time I might even have thought of such things, they were never really a hit over in the UK. So we kind of went straight from VHS to
Mm,
DVD.
yeah. Yeah, there is still a fan base alive and well here in the States for the Laserdisc.
I think part of
Um,
that has to be people buy. I know some people buy vinyl because they say it sounds better, but I also know a lot of people buy vinyl because they like the large scale cover art, and I think the same is probably true with Laserdisc.
yeah,
Because
good point.
because is anyone really buying something to watch on sort of sub DVD non anamorphic quality as their viewing thing of choice?
Well, the
Yes, old
cover
Johnny
art for
Devick. Oliver
vinyl,
Harper does collect them, but again, I'm pretty certain
right?
he's doing that for the covers rather than the discs.
Well, and remember back in the day when the covers for the VHS movies, movie posters, it used to be an art form. Um, Vinyl records, it used to be an art form, and that would be a lot of the appeal to the record that you choose, not just the artist, but the cover art. It was a
Well,
big deal.
like I say, if you go back and look at, say, 1970s or 80s James Bond posters and how inventive they are, and then compare them to Daniel Craig era posters that are just a photo of Daniel Craig walking.
Exactly. Yes, Mad Matt, was the trigger sequence just 3 clicks in total, or did it have to be a triple? It was a triple click. So very clever to switch that pen. But then again, that's his James Bond.
You don't need to be very clever if you can just blow everything up.
And have the bomb in a pen. Oh, this is the oldest trick in the book. Play dead. Play dead. And this guy is just so clueless. Oh, sister. It was also a good way to get original audio tracks instead of reprocess sound like today's releases.
Yeah, I mean one of the things with the James Bond Blu-ray releases was that you didn't have on the older films the original mono tracks. You had just later remixed stereo or DTS sound releases. But apparently, on the 4K discs, they're going to give us glorious mono again.
Well, that'll be something. There's something to be said for things getting lost in translation when you convert it over and over and over again. Things get lost. Oh, and we can. You know what? My favorite go-to for that is the theatrical release of A New Hope, and how now it's not even available. But that was how we saw it in the theater, and that was the original, the true version of what we saw, of what I saw in the theater when I was a kid. And now you can't find it. Mad says we missed the discussion of the plan in the elevator where they decide not to do get help, but go for play dead. Oh,
Yes,
yes,
quite
Cowbot.
right,
And then Star Wars.
Cowbot.
What did I
You
say?
mean Star Wars, Sharon, not
Yes.
A New Hope.
Yes.
It's
Yes.
not episode 4, A New Hope. It's
It
Star
was Star
Wars.
Wars. Yes. Yes. When it came out to all of us, it was Star Wars. And yes. Thank you for that, Cowbot.
Yes, well, as I said, I have my highly dubious, despecialized Star Wars
Yeah.
Blu-ray to watch.
I used to have the original trilogy on VHS, theatrical release, as nature intended. I used to have that. Um, I think Helifino, he says, I bought the VHS of Star Wars 95 just before the special release. I think that was the one that I got.
But
Uh,
it's ridiculous that I've got this great big 4K deluxe box set of all the films,
yeah,
and I've just kind of left it on a shelf and got some dodgy transfers of old cinema prints that I watch instead.
yeah.
But then
There's just there's
last
something to
month,
be said for the original.
the BFI in London did one of the first cinema screenings in about 40 odd years of the original Star Wars from a dye preservation print they had that was literally from the original release run. It sold out immediately, and
Yep.
they ended up. I think they had Kathleen Kennedy from Disney there to introduce it, just to say that no, no, we've given them permission to show it. It is legal.
I remember that, and they're thinking about bringing it to the states. And there's this whole big controversy that no, Lucas wants nothing to do with that, and but he doesn't own the rights anymore. So
I can only think there must have been something when he sold them that in the contract it said you can never release the version
yeah,
everyone wants to see.
everyone wants to see.
McClunky.
Yeah, sis sister, I'm with you. I have the THX versions and special editions on VHS, and the original releases and special editions on Laserdisc. I have like all the versions after the VHS. I have all the versions. Do I watch them? Maybe. Maybe I will. I don't know.
Well, it's what I said when we watched Star Wars a few weeks back, that the
Yep.
bits that I find are most aging badly on that film are all the bits that have been put in since 1997. Because
Yes,
practical effects, if they're done well, they don't really age. Whereas all this CGI stuff, it really ages very quickly.
absolutely. Absolutely. Um, yes, Cowbot, dear Mrs. Kennedy, please release an effing Blu-ray. Thank you. Yes, absolutely. I'll sign that letter and we'll mail it out to her. Well, we are getting to the climax of the movie. How much time? We have about 8 minutes left. Will Bond survive? He's hanging by a thread, a wire. He's hanging on a wire, and the shit's about to hit the fan.
Well, he is about to make sure that Alec Trevelyan really, really, really dies and can't come back for a sequel.
Oh, really, really dies. As opposed to the death he had at the end of season one of Game of Thrones, where he couldn't come back either.
We know that Sean Bean dies in everything.
He dies in everything. Yes, the comment in the Discord, Sean Bean dies in the end. You mean Sean Bean
So
might die? Shocker.
he's
Yes.
been dropped this giant distance. His
And
leg is broken in about 18 places, so it's probably just pulp. He's still not dead.
he's still not dead. He ought to have blood. Well, he has blood from his mouth, his nose. He should have it from his eyes, his ears. His head should be split open. But that death is not good enough. Just a flesh wound. Thank you, Eric. It's just a flesh wound. And yes, Calbot, I am not dead yet. Okay, this is how he gets to be deader than dead. That's got to be brutal though, knowing it's coming down and you see it coming down on you. Oh, Miss Swift, not the holiday special, anything but that. Well, you know what? I plan on doing a whole month of Christmas movies. Um, I'm,
Invincible.
I'm going to have a revolt if I put the Star Wars holiday special. I'm
Now,
going to I'm going to have a revolt on my hands.
for
Okay,
several
this
years
is a
at
bad
the
way to die.
Planet Hollywood restaurant in London, the cinema version of Hard Rock Cafe, their centerpiece was that frozen statue of Boris going, I am invincible.
Oh, Miss Swift, my friends and I still say I am invincible in a bad Russian to this day because of this movie scene. That's classic. I would have loved to see him just shatter into a million pieces. And the satellite burned up on reentry. The observatory got blowed up.
And
And the
as is
bad guys are dead.
traditional, no sooner does Bond finally get to have some nookie at the end of the film, but loads of people pop up to watch.
The Marines have landed.
Do-
There
it
you
doesn't.
go.
It doesn't top the end of Octopussy, where no, Moonraker, where Bond is attempting re-entry, or The Spy Who Loved Me, where he's keeping the British end up.
Well, this is a classic Bond ending. This is what we want. It's a happy ending. Yes, Johnny Devick, that invincible is a great quote. And going like this, I am invincible, is great. You know what? Not bad for what, 2 hour and 10 minute? That kind of went speeding along, just like a Bond movie should. There we go. All right, people, we are at the end. We don't have to sit there and watch the credits. Um, and yes, any last thoughts? What you guys thought of James Bond as part of the franchise? Pierce Brosnan. What do you guys think? I thoroughly enjoyed this. Every time I see it, I thoroughly enjoy it.
There
Um,
are. Thanks to Mad Matt, we have a suggestion for your Christmas movie, Die Another Day, because Christmas doesn't just come once a year.
I'll put that on my list. Yeah, hell if I know. One of the best Bond flicks. Johnny Devick is saying it's a great movie. Good revivo. Yeah, Miss Swift, it had its highlights. Eric says this for me is the best James Bond movie. I love rewatching it. It has been a while. I'm so glad you joined us today. Sith Sister over there in Discord says, well, it was good as always. Brosnan is a good Bond. Wife's cheese rating, a good brie. That's like two thumbs up. Um, yeah, very enjoyable. One of the top Bond movies. What a blast, guys.
I
Um,
think possibly the sad thing for the Brosnan era is this is as good as it gets.
well, Mad Matt was saying for a first watch, I found it rather disjointed. Um, yeah, I mean, Brosnan to me is really solid.
I
I
think
rank him up there with
my
some of the.
usual take with the Brosnan films is that his performance gets better in every film as the films he's expected to appear in get worse with every film.
Oh, that's a good way of looking at it. I grew up with Bond in the era of Roger Moore, so he was like the bar that they set. Then I started watching the older Sean Connery ones, and I thought, you know what, Sean Connery does it almost better. Then they bring Brosnan in, and it's like, this is great. This keeps the franchise alive by bringing in good actors. So this is a good one for me. I give it two thumbs up. Um, all right.
And
So
Minnie Driver also gets a credit at the end for singing
there,
Stand By Your Man.
there you go. I
So
thought
her awful singing gets her a second
with it
credit.
being so brief, I thought maybe it's not a credited role. Um, okay, so if you are all familiar with my summer schedule, we've got a couple more weeks. Next week, we are going to be going into the Hammer movie franchise. We're going to be watching The Curse of Frankenstein, 1957 classic. So depending on your opinion, it might be in the middle. It's not the best, it's not the favorite of most people, but you know what? We're going to have a solid showing. We're going to have all things to discuss on the Hammer franchise. Anything you guys got, let's bring it. Let's bring our A game and have a great discussion. Um, yes, Matt, it's Hammer time. So it is available on all the streaming services. If you're lucky enough to have it on disc, I mean, it's out there. It's very well known and established, so you should have no problem finding it.
Yeah,
If
there's a
so,
Warner
let me
Archives
know.
Blu-ray in the US.
There are so many versions. Um, it has got a solid presence, so you should not have a problem finding it. Um, And for any of you that haven't seen it, you're in for a treat. We're just gonna have so much fun with this movie next week. Um, yeah. So yeah, stay tuned. I'm planning some different things with this channel as well. We're gonna keep doing our Sunday thing, and maybe doing a little expanding. So all right, guys. Thank you for being here today. It means the world to me. Thank you, James, for joining me as a co-host. Um, we'll do it again next week.
Hello.
See you all later. Bye.